Welcome to the show. Of course, it is week 2. Week 1 is in the books. It is official. We are in the NFL season. We got a great show tonight, guys. We're going to be doing bounce backs. We got some buy lows, some value gainers, who we like for week 2, and of course, we'll be doing the nonsense draft as usual. And we're going to be doing the return of the Underdog Prop Bet of the week. We didn't do one last week, but we're going to bring it back this week. So hang tight.
Going for 2, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for 2, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, and welcome to episode 389 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Of course, we are part of the GoingFor2 Live Podcast Network, and we're here every Wednesday night, 9:30 Eastern Time on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and, of course, syndicated in all major podcast networks and GoingFor2.com. I am here with not Ryan tonight. Ryan, unfortunately, could not make it, so filling in tonight for him, Mr. Brian Ford. He is the host of the Dynasty Saturday Night 5 right here on this network. Also hosts the Dynasty Fever podcast. You can follow him at FFJunkie_. And I wish I had a way that I could show Brian in the green room as the intro music is playing, because he is absolutely jamming out over there. I was trying to find a way if I could just put him on like a little small window screen or something. It would have been awesome. What's up, Brian?
Hey, how's it going, Jeff? And nice to meet you, other Jeff, and other Jeff. I don't know. And so, good, glad to be back on Armchair and happy to talk some fantasy and overreact to one data point.
Yes, that's exactly right. Overreact. I've been seeing it all over Twitter. I've been getting my DMs. People like, "Oh, should I drop Dalton Kincaid?" And I'm like, "No. It's 1 week. Just hold tight. It's 1 week." Also joining us tonight for the first time on the show, as Brian alluded, the other Jeff, Jeff Hicks, who you can follow at other Jeff Hicks on Twitter. He's from College Sports Wire, USA Today, and FTN. As I mentioned, you can follow him at other Jeff Hicks. What is up, Jeff? How are you doing tonight?
Jeff with a G. Thank you for inviting me. For those that don't know me, get in line. But no, the big thing is thank you to Jeff for letting me on. I've been in GoingFor2's Discord for a while. Long history of writing from places that range from like the Action Network, 4for4. And then I was most recently at the Game Day before things changed there. So yeah, I don't normally do podcasts. I don't normally do a lot of things that most fantasy people do. So Jeff is kind enough to let me be in Discord and have my way talking. So it's been nice, and the invitation is always a great thing to get, no matter who it is. So thank you.
Love it, man. Love it. Love to have you on, man, for sure. And it's, you've been in the Discord for quite a while, I think, actually, right? You've been you're one of the first people in there. So yeah, this is long overdue to get you on the show, man, for sure. All right. Today's show brought to you, as always, by Underdog Fantasy, industry-leading best ball leagues, huge tournaments, private leagues, pick'ems, which we'll do a pick'em tonight for all major sports, but we'll concentrate on NFL tonight. Use our promo code GF2 and get a bonus match up to $1,000. It's as simple as that. Sign up. Use our promo code GF2 and start doing those pick'ems, man, because they're a lot of fun. Like I said, we'll do one tonight. We'll do one for every week of the season here. See if we can win some money here. All right, as always, we'll kick things off with our nonsense draft.
Attention, everyone. Let's mock draft.
All right, tonight we are drafting if you could tame any animal and make it a pet, what would it be? And Jeff's already kind of laughing over here. So you got the first pick, Jeff. So I'm curious to what your first pick is here.
Okay, so I need parameters very quickly here. We're talking literally any animal in the animal kingdom, ranging from like insects to
Anything
like
at all.
giraffes. Like,
There's no rules in the nonsense draft. Pick whatever you want.
oh gosh, well I'm gonna come off as a softie with my first pick. I've always joked that if I could turn a spare bedroom into an igloo, I would, or like an ice palace. So number one pick, if I could tame them myself, this is not with any like zoologist or zookeeper, I would take penguins.
Penguins, I love it.
I would
love
absolutely
it.
penguins.
Is there a certain, like, is it an emperor penguin, or does it matter? Just penguins in general.
Anyone that wants to come in, you're in.
All right, I love it.
Anyone.
I love it. Good stuff. All right, Brian, you got the pick 2 here.
I'm gonna go with elephant. Yeah, like I just love elephants. I'm just drawn to them. I think it's the idea of the long memory, the idea that like you can like clearly tell they mourn their dead, and so I just have elephant kind of things all around my apartment. Got elephant tattoo. Like
Nice.
I really love elephants. Just kind of like I just dig it. I look at like how some people like, oh, they got ducks all over their like.
Yep.
That's me and elephants. So yeah, I would go with elephant.
Nice. I love it. All right, I'm up at the 103, and looking at my list, I realized I didn't do this on purpose, but a lot of my animals are kind of like badasses, right? And I'm definitely not. I don't fit that persona, or I should, where you could see me walking around with like a tiger or something. So my first pick I'll make is a little bit more, I guess, traditional pet, if you could make it a pet. And I recently saw a real one at the DC Zoo, but a red panda. They're kind of in the raccoon family. They kind of look kind of interesting. Cute, I guess would be the word. I think they'd be kind of cool to have around the house as a pet. So red panda, I think, would be my first option there if I really wanted a pet. So that's
there's a Twitter account that's like tweets a red panda every day or every hour or something like that, because they're literally that cute. Like
it's awesome.
Yeah.
We have one at my zoo in central Illinois. We actually have just one. He just chills all day.
Yep. Yeah, I think the DC Zoo had a whole family of them. They got like a whole thing set up where they can like literally go everywhere. There's probably about 8 to 10 of them in there. It's pretty cool. All right, Jeff, back to you here at the 201.
All right, this one is because I got scared by one. I think most recently it scared me last Halloween. So going back to the zoo, we have a very small one. I live in Bloomington Normal, which is home to the Illinois State University Redbirds. James Robinson would be the most relevant player to come out of there recently. So we have a nice small zoo, but they are in partnership to preserve American wolves and stuff like that. And the good thing is, like, they sleep. So, you can't really find them, which is tough when you got the kids during the day and stuff like that. But at night, specifically when you're doing Halloween stuff at that zoo, that's when they roam. And, it's natural, easier to be a predator and stuff like that. But when they walk past, your big glass partition, and you forget that they're not like huskies, and then they just walk past, boy, I almost fell to the ground. So it's one of those things, like they're loyal. They work in packs. They believe in family. And then on top of that, if I have to put a saddle on it, there are slower means of transportation. So
yeah. Yeah, I think the first time I saw it was a gray wolf. They have one at the DC Zoo, and in my head, I guess I picture them being the size of a large dog. And I'm kind of like looking through, like, where is he at? And I happened to turn to my left, and he was like standing up on a hill. And the size of it just took me by surprise, how big they actually are. It was like, I was like, whoa, that's a wolf. Definitely cannot be confused with a dog for sure. So yeah, that's a great choice there. I love it. All right, Brian, you got the 202 here.
Yeah, koala. I'm
Nice.
gonna tame a koala, and so the thing is, like me, they're cute, furry, and vegan, right? But also, like me, like they can get kind of nasty. Like I've heard, like they can be real crabby, and they got those claws and stuff. So like don't sleep on them, and don't sleep with them, because koalas apparently like are like riddled with chlamydia. Yeah. So, yeah. But we're gonna still go with the furry, cute part. I got koala socks. So
Nice.
yeah. Koala.
Stuff. All right, I'm up at the 203, and there's a TikTok account that I follow where he shows these very exotic animals or just interesting animals in general, and tells you a little bit about them, some kind of facts or whatever. And a recent one that came up, and I had never even heard of it before, but it's a golden eagle. So obviously I've heard of the bald eagle, but the golden eagle is the largest bird in North America, largest eagle. 7-foot wingspan. He essentially showed like Shaquille O'Neal and then laid him out sideways and said, "This is his wingspan," essentially. So, and it dive bombs at 200 miles per hour, which is the second fastest bird to the falcon, and can spot a mouse from up to 2 miles away. The talons are like 3 inches. It's got like this crazy force that it can pick up small deer. It's huge. Again, like I said, most of my lists were like badasses, and then of the badasses, that one was the most badass. Just to walk around with a freaking large ass like eagle on your shoulder would be pretty cool. So the golden eagles will I'll go here at 203. All right, Jeff, back to you for your last pick.
I'm not a cat person, but I narrowed it down to 2. And it was between the cheetah for the obvious reason of speed, and also, they're still a cat somehow, some way. Or we get mini cheetah, which is like an ocelot. And I think I'm going to go with that just because every now and then it's nice to have a pet in your lap. And if it's tamed, well, it's a little bit bigger than your normal cat, not as hairy, hopefully less sheddy than the one that I have. So an ocelot, you still get speed, you get something fun. Their pattern is dope. And I know that they have what appears to be a direct descendant in the cat family itself, too, anyways. So
nice.
I think it's something there. And I'm a little bit everywhere because if I wasn't going to go cat, I was going to go like axolotl. But since they kind of just go in tanks because, they're water-based animals, didn't seem as fun because technically just throw it in a tank and it's tame. So
yeah,
not nearly as fun.
Good stuff. I love it. All right, Brian, what's your last pick?
Yeah, so this one is a little out there. The harpy eagle. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this.
I know what you're talking about.
It's literally like a human-sized bird, and it gets mistaken for like a person in a costume. And the face when it looks at you is just like, what is going on in that brain? The thing is, though, I don't know that it would be my equal. I don't know that it would be my pet. Like it's a big bird, just kind of like, oh yeah, you go like it's that big. You could talk to it, just chill out, watch Rick and Morty. Yeah.
You have to purposely like name it something human so people aren't like petrified.
Yeah,
I'll name it.
Oh yeah, that's just Bill over there in the corner. Yeah, you need him to crack open a beer, he'll do it. Like that's like you need something like that, like to go with it.
Good stuff. All right, I will round us out here at the 303. So I wanted something super intelligent, right? Like I was almost picturing like, I'm doing my podcast and, I try to do everything. I do the producing, I do the sound drops. I try to do everything. Well, if I could have a chimpanzee that can just learn a couple of the things, right? Like hit the drop, do this, just to have me help out on my podcast. I will do that. So yeah,
you want a producer?
Yeah, exactly. I want a producer
chimp.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that would be what I would round out here with the chimpanzee. Obviously, a super smart animal, and it can learn some things in the podcasting game. All right, let's get to our roulette. And I have a drop now. I haven't had a drop before. I finally went and got a drop.
Let's get ready for Armchair Fantasy Roulette.
All right. If y'all haven't watched the show recently, this is our new format. I loaded up. I think we have 18 different topics into the wheel. We will hit the wheel and see what pops up, and we'll discuss it. So it kind of adds a little bit of randomness to the show here. So let's go ahead and get our first topic. All right, this one is from John Paulson on Twitter. He's talking about the Bills receiver routes. So these are the routes. Keon Coleman ran 29, Dalton Kincaid 25, Khalil Shakir ran 22, Matt Collins 21, James Cook 15, Dawson Knox 15, and Curtis Samuel 9. And really what I wanted to talk about here, guys, is what do you make of this breakdown? Obviously, Everyone was really high on Dalton Kincaid. Didn't really have a great week one. The rookie Keon Coleman leads the team in targets, in routes run, in yards, the whole nine. How much stock are you putting into this kind of breakdown into week one, Jeff?
It's tough. I know in our pre-show DMs and stuff like that, I think we all agreed on something with that, especially how easy it is to overreact. But I think like the biggest thing I'm going to take away, like Kincaid, I'm not surprised Coleman's at the top. He'll be near the top. Like Kincaid makes sense. I mean, game script, whatever they're showing on defense. I know the Cardinals were, state of flux, but I'm kind of surprised at how low Curtis Samuel was with only 9 routes and stuff. And I know there's injuries, there's, whatever he fits with the scheme for that week, whatever the game plan was. Like, I think that's more surprising that he wasn't at least, double digits. Like, that would have been nice. Or even, similar to James Cook, what if James Cook, doesn't get 15? He gets 10, and then there's 14 for Samuel. Like,
Yeah.
then what do we take from it even then, too? Like, it's just the flip of a couple of different types of targets, routes, and stuff like that makes a difference. But Samuel's being the lowest sticks out.
Yeah, that's a good point there, because you're right. People were really high on Samuel. Not high. I'd say they would put him in the mix there for a possible, number one target in this offense. And he was not only the number one target, he was almost non-existent. But it could be injury related, like you mentioned. He did come into the game with an injury designation, and it could be just related to that. What about you, Brian? What are your thoughts on this breakdown, and what do you think it kind of goes going forward from here? Do you think things change?
Not a whole lot. I do agree that Coleman stays near the top. Hard to take a whole lot out of a 1 week sample. I'm a little more concerned about the target distribution if I'm a Kincaid truther, which I kind of am, right? And I think there's going to be games where Keon Coleman is they're throwing to the outside and he's getting contested balls, and that's that'll spike his targets, and there's going to be but I really thought that like Kincaid was going to be the metronome of getting pretty much high volume targets. So we'll see. But I think that would be my concern is the target distribution more than the routes. So I don't know if that's a cop out answer, but there you go.
No, I like it. I like it. It's funny because I have a friend of mine who's in my home Dynasty league, and he has Dalton Kincaid, and he sent me a video on Twitter after Dalton Kincaid underperformed, and he showed me it was just one single play, but it kind of happened throughout the game where Kincaid ran a route over the middle, and there were not one, not two, not three, but 4 defenders around Dalton Kincaid. Two guys deep, 2 guys underneath. They dumped it off to James Cook in the flat, but they were determined to take Dalton Kincaid out of the game, and I think that has to do a lot with what the target share was and why he had such a bad game.
Yeah, the coach mentioned that after the game, and so it's one of those spots where they'll say like this happened, so we need to get him the ball more and earlier, and it's like so kind of keep your eye on that for week 2.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go ahead and get our next topic here.
I'm terrified.
All right, this one is from Pete Nova, Supernova38 on Twitter, and he wants to know: are you selling J.K. Dobbins high, or could he be a league winner? So really, two ends of the coin here. Are you selling him at his peak right now, essentially, or are you going to try to hold him, thinking he can be a league winner, which is currently RB4 right now with week 1? I'll go to you first this time, Brian.
I think so. I'm going to start like high level here. Jacob Sanderson on his Substack mentioned sort of the way that he was thinking about Dobbins in the offseason, and it's basically the same way I was, which is I think a big chunk of his range of outcomes could be completely nothing, right? Only guaranteed 50K, knees and Achilles, head, shoulders, knees and Achilles. And so, but at the same time, he was maybe getting overly penalized for that in where he was in ADP. So I still kind of saw him as a value at cost, and I have him on a few best ball teams, right? So after 1 week, does my prior of how much of a range of outcomes is completely nothing change? I think it kind of has to, right? You see some of those long runs. they're efficient runs. There was a few that were really long, and you can take that a couple ways. You can say he only got 10 carries and everything's coming from 2 long runs that you're not going to break off every week. Or you could come from the angle of, okay, well, he clearly is explosive now, so won't need 18, 20 and so all that to say, it really depends on the format, your league, what the market is. I would still probably say get out high on Dobbins, all things considered, including, the defense on that team and which, is going to have a couple good first weeks, and sort of, the share, what's the offensive pie going to be on that? It's all that, I there's enough of the range of outcomes that's bad for me to say I'll take him I'll cash out now, right? Because if I'm getting something worthwhile in return, there's a good chance he's not going to, vastly outperform what I'm getting. Yeah. Sorry, that was a little rambly because I got my dynasty brain on and I'm trying to think what might redraft people want. Yeah.
It's all good. And just to go on that note about, J.K. Dobbins being explosive, I think then Next Gen Stats put out the fastest, on-field times this past week. And J.K. Dobbins had the fastest run, I think 21 miles an hour he topped out at. So, as far as him being healthy, he is fully healthy right now. Now, who knows, 3-4 weeks in the season, how that's going to go. But what about you, Jeff? How do you fall on this J.K. Dobbins situation here?
It's just so tough because J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards traded purple for Chargers blue, and you're going to an offense where they made sure that they upgraded on the offensive line. Great. But the only problem is that you're still looking at a 50-50 split. If it wasn't for Dobbins getting 2 more targets and receptions, nobody would care. They would just go to look at the explosive runs, and that type of thing. And I do have to say, once he hit the holes hard. There's a lot of that initial burst. The problem that I have is that he let defenders that he blew past catch up to him. So that's where the injuries are more of an issue. Re-injury is always going to be concerned with him just because of the level of injuries he's sustained so far. But he's now at the point where it's not, he can recover. We know how fast he is. We know how explosive he is. It's now those injuries are going to take away a little bit of that now. And we're going to start seeing that more and more because, again, every year he misses, he's getting a year older. So that's more the concern for me. If somebody's willing to take that chance, especially if he's getting ranked or considered no worse than a mid-level RB3, then there's probably other guys in that territory where people may be lower on at that point too that you could swap out, especially if you do the IKB, I know better type of thing, including your favorite team. You could go get your favorite guy or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's go ahead, Brian.
And think about, if you're going to sell high, think about who are some backs that maybe underperformed week 1 as sort of targets. And then also just to add, I want to say that Edwards got more carries within the 5 and late in the game got that goal line touch. Mm-hmm. So if that's going to be a thing and you're taking out the TD part of the upside, probably even better reason to sell as well.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely on the sell side of things as well. A lot of the points y'all mentioned there, and I think there's enough injuries already that could you go to the Christian McCaffrey owner that doesn't have Jordan Mason? Could you sell him? Not Christian McCaffrey, but could you get something good from him because he's without his number 1 overall pick right now, and J.K. Dobbins is looking pretty sweet. So could you sell him to that owner to get somebody good? So I think I'm with y'all on that to try to sell now. All right, this one is from Big Draft Energy HQ on Twitter, and he says, as the number 1 Bijan Robinson hater, I have to concede this. I believe we just saw Bijan Robinson put up 16.6 fantasy points at his floor. Just take a minute and let that sink in. I'll go to you first on this one, Jeff. So first of all, where did you fall on the Bijan Robinson thing? Were you a hater or did you love Bijan coming into the season? And then how do you feel about, week 1 being his floor and being able to build on that throughout the rest of the season?
he was probably my favorite running back, not CMC, especially, if you're not drafting 101, 102, you probably weren't going to get McCaffrey anyway, so you're game planning beyond that. I thought it was a great fit. I know the offensive line has been kind of wonky, in part because of injuries. It seems to be a theme. But I think in terms of what we saw week 1-2, we know the Steelers defense is good, but not great, because you take out TJ Watt and they're just vanilla. It's just a lack of talent there. But I think what was nice to see is that TJ Watt got his, and so did Bijan. And that's still with a quarterback with one leg right now, because nobody's going to tell me that Kirk Cousins is 100% healthy right now, the way he was throwing that ball or the way he was trying to square up to throw the ball. So that's good things for Bijan, because they're going to scheme whatever they can to get the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands when it's not going to Pitts or London, or even Ray McLeod, who ended up, getting 4 or 5, for over 50 yards and stuff like that. So, like, the good thing with having the veteran quarterback now, as opposed to Ritter or even Penix at this point, is that the veteran quarterback knows how to get the ball to the people he wants to get it to. If there's one thing Kirk Cousins does, he's going to target his best players. So I think that's the great thing for Bijan. I just really hope for Bijan Havers that Kirk Cousins doesn't get hit the wrong way just even once with like an elbow, because I'm terrified of that Achilles injury right now.
Yeah, they showed some video of him, sort of favoring that leg, not wanting to put a lot of pressure on it. So you're right. I mean, that is definitely a concern for sure. And probably why they went and got Penix to begin with. So that's a good call. Brian, what about you? I know how you fall on Bijan Robinson in Dynasty, obviously, but in redrafts right now, we're looking at this year. What are your thoughts on Bijan?
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Big Draft Energy, but I didn't know there were Bijan haters. I did, and let alone one at the top. So this is from JJ Zachariason in his weekly data dump. Bijan Robinson's running back rush share and target share per game last year were 48.5 and 17.5 respectively. Yesterday, 85.7 and 21.7. So, but it's 1 week, right? We know how good Tyler Algier is, right? And they did talk about Tyler Algier is going to have a role. So you can't, after 1 week, say, "Oh, all this talk about a timeshare." Like, I hope it's a whole lot of Bijan, because that's just more fun for fantasy. But again, it's only 1 week sample. I will add though this. This is kind of like an X's and O's thing that I don't even really fully understand. I'm not like that, hand in the dirt, football guy. But so like they didn't do anything under center with Kirk Cousins, right? And so therefore also didn't do a lot of play action. And he's not moving, so you can't really do that, and you can't really do bootlegs. So it's something about like that edge on the one side can now say, okay, that's not a threat, and can go run Bijan down from behind. And that TJ Watt did that a few times. Yep. Now, not everybody is TJ Watt, right? But, if Kirk isn't moving, that might be bad for Bijan, even though Kirk not moving, you would want to say like, okay, they're going to get the ball out of his hands quickly. It's 1 week, and we got to see where it goes. And I think it's still a talent bet no matter what. So
yeah, I'm with y'all. Nothing really to add to either one of y'all. Obviously Bijan Robinson, 16.5 fantasy points in week 1. And it kind of came off as a disappointment in a way, right? Like you wanted so much more, but I do agree that I think this could be his floor. And I think, going forward, I think he'll be absolutely fine. So I love Bijan. I actually had him as my RB2 in redraft. So I had him slightly over Breece Hall.
I have one funny stat here while that rolls.
Go ahead.
So Bijan got a total of 23 touches on 50 snaps played. Pretty good, just about 50%. Well, Tyler Algier only played 10. Okay, that's great for Bijan. He's on the field. Of course, you may have your crossover. He still got the ball 30% of the time on 10 touches. So it's very clear that when those guys are on the field, it's as likely as other players that they're going to see the ball. So
yeah,
very interesting.
Good stuff. All right, this one's for you, Brian. This one's got Ryan McDowell on here. Which player gained the most dynasty value after week 1?
So my initial answer is nobody. It's 1 week, right? But that's more of the answer of like who should have gained a lot of dynasty value week 1. The reality is the market reacts to things, and that the dynasty market is increasingly reactionary the last couple of years, right? It's such a like there's so little patience, and it becomes much more like a stock market thing, where it's like, okay, here's a spike. What kind of value can I pump out of this, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to say that it's not Jordan Mason, right? But I think there's still a part of his story where CMC is back in a couple weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And then what does he become then? Then you have to say to yourself, well, because CMC has a 28-year-old injured running back, and how awesome Jordan Mason is, and he can't go away at all, they're gonna have to try to preserve CMC now, and so Jordan Mason's this revelation, so it's gonna be 65-35, right? Maybe, or Kyle Shanahan could be Kyle Shanahan, but like, so if I'm interested in Mason, I'm still probably waiting a little bit and saying, let me really watching these practice reports. And if CMC is trending towards not playing, cool off, right? If he's trending towards playing, right? Wait a week. And because, all this to say, Mason's value will dip. Right. So if you're a Mason guy, right, it's still a pretty good bet, because contingency upside, I love contingency upside in running backs, so, right. But then I thought to myself when I was looking at what's like a sneaky answer to this, and Baker Mayfield. And it's not just his performance, right. And even like film guys like Matt Waldman pointing out like him navigating the pocket better and stuff like that. He has 2 legit running backs now and 3 legit wide receivers, 1 back in the slot where he belongs. And it's not just him and his week 1 performance, but let's think about the quarterbacks that are ranked around him. Cousins, vibes are bad, right? Deshaun Watson, we know where the vibes are.
Real bad.
Geno's 34. Aaron Rodgers, didn't like the world on fire at week 1. Let me pull up my running back ranking because I'm probably not thinking of, Will Levis, right? Didn't have a great week 1. So it's a matter of not Bryce Young. It's a matter of not so much just his performance, but other people dipping, right? And I say this as sneaky because if a guy is increasing in value, but the market hasn't reflected it yet, that's the guy you go buy, right? Yeah. Because he should be increasing in value. And now you wait a few weeks and all the vibes remain bad. And Baker's the cheese stands alone, and you may have a very tradable asset at that point. I know that was kind of long-winded, but I kind of wanted to give a sneaky answer to it.
No, I like it. Good stuff.
No, that's not sneaky. Well, it is sneaky because clearly, like you mentioned, like the market has not reacted, but 100%, I was considering him tonight. No joke. I was considering talking about like Baker Mayfield's one of those guys that, late bloomer works out well. So just great minds think alike. That's all.
Did you have another one besides Baker?
Yes, I do. And this is where the cross between redraft and dynasty is tough. But the reason why I picked this guy is because I had to chart the Denver Broncos offense for FTN this week.
I had this guy too, just so you know.
Devon Vele. So, and it's not the 8 receptions. That's great. Welcome to the NFL, kid. If you get 8 again, take everybody out because hopefully you'll make it to your second contract the next time that happens. But the reason why I like him is he's not being asked to play opposite Cortland Sutton right away. He's been mainly slot, like 3 out of 4 snaps he played in the slot when he did. He played over Lil Jordan Humphrey, which if we all look at Lil Jordan Humphrey, he's not little. So, and he has way more experience, and he got usurped by a 26-year-old rookie. So that's the biggest flaw for Vele is that he actually, is old enough to rent a car already. He's the bread and wiener of wide receivers, essentially. But I love him right now, especially if his window's 3 years, cool, because he's also playing with a rookie quarterback. And he was handpicked in the 7th round to work with Bo Nix by Sean Payton. And as long as he's the head coach, that matters. So the short term, obviously massive spike for him because of his one game performance. But when you're looking at guys around him in terms of like dynasty value, like afterthoughts like Tyler Johnson, who was a major pickup this week in redraft and stuff like that. Like that matters because Tyler Johnson is now in his like 73rd and a half team at this point, it feels like, while, Villet just has this opportunity right out the gate to make a difference, even if it ends up just being 5 targets, 3 receptions, 30 yards. Like, give me consistency, especially during bye weeks. And we're talking dynasty where, the formats can just go all over the place. And you may have to play 7 or 8 wide receivers. That's a guy that's just nice, especially if you're playing half point PPR or PPR, because then like those 8 receptions, just go nuclear for you.
Yeah, I love that call. I had the exact same guy on my list as well. And, you mentioned, him taking over for or playing over Lil Jordan Humphrey. He also played over Marvin Mims, who only got 17% snaps.
Jeff, you're playing over him at this point.
Fair.
I loved Mims too, and I was wrong about why I loved him. Right? It's not just like it was a good bet to make, and it just didn't work out. Looking back, it wasn't a good bet to make.
I wonder if maybe he just fits better with a different structure, or he could just be, just maybe, especially from like the neck up, just not a guy that fits in the NFL because there's talent. We know there's talent. It's just maybe just that one intangible.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. I'll take the low hanging fruit. I have this guy on my home dynasty league, and I was trying to trade him in the offseason, and I could not move him for anything because I was trying to get a little bit more than he's worth. But I'm going to go with Isaiah Likely. His value has increased. Obviously, had a monster week 1, and the quote unquote elite tight end on his team, Mark Andrews, didn't run as many routes, didn't play as much. Obviously, didn't have enough targets, so everybody's kind of really high and Likely right now. So I do think there's a bit of a sell high window, but I do think it is sustainable to a sense. It won't be the whatever it was, 11 targets and 100 plus yards and a touchdown every week. But I do think both Mark Andrews and Likely can coexist, and I think people are going to start to see that, and I think it increases his value because before the season started, I used the trade calculator DLC. I think his value on DLC was like a 3, which is essentially like a second round pick. You go on there now, it's like an 11, which is closer to a first round pick. So just from the calculator sense, he's already increased his value, and now I got people knocking my door down trying to get him. And they're trying to give me that same second round pick, and I'm not taking it now. Now I want more than that. So I think the 2 guys you mentioned, the 2 of you mentioned are also really, really high on that list as well. Just a couple other names I wanted to throw out there. I think Jameson Williams also increased his value as well. Obviously, monster week 1. We need to see some consistency from him because he is one of those receivers that can disappear. But I do think, if you are, concerned about Williams' involvement, I think we saw that he's definitely going to be involved, and I think it's wheels up from here for Jameson Williams. So he's another one that I had on my list as well.
Let the record show, I did not victory lap JMO, because I am a man of my word that I cannot overreact to 1 week.
To 1 week.
I didn't victory lap Tank Bigsby. Or is this victory lapping now if I mention it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Quick question for you guys here as a follow-up on Williams. So I know he had whatever you want to call his rookie year. It was an adventure. And, with injury and stuff like that on top of it too, do we maybe think that we were just jumping the gun last year when that was probably more like his true rookie season as opposed to his actual?
Yeah, and I think the suspension even sent him back even a little bit more, right? Because he had the suspension at the beginning of the season. He couldn't even get in there, and he had a lot of bad media. He's a young player that probably took too much into the media, and it got into his head, and I think it showed on his play. So I think this year is really the year I think that he will be judged on. Are you in agreement with that one, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's one of those like, and I'm somewhat of a truther. It's like if he's healthy and it doesn't happen this year, even I'm out. You know what I mean? Because like I can craft the narrative about the injury, which is basically a redshirt rookie year, suspension plus injury, and now we get word that from the neck up, maybe what I can, and then now going to the off season, great coach speak from Dan Campbell, who is one of the most honest coaches according to Coach Speak Index, things like that. So it's like I could make that story. If he like flops now, what story do you have, right? But the Lions offense is going to be really interesting. when you add another relevant guy now that you can use, it complicates things for every other piece.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the improved defense, maybe decreasing the number of overall plays, like it starts to get a little interesting when you think about how all those pieces are going to fit together and still return value.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure all the Amon-Ra St. Brown owners are not happy after week 1 because Jameson Williams took a lot of those snaps from, or a lot of those big plays from him. So good points, gentlemen. All right, let's go back to the wheel. All right, this one's kind of hard to see. Deshaun Watson was pressured on 44.5% of his dropbacks in week 1. Is the highest pressure rate faced since 2022. And then in the small print down there, essentially he's saying that that's his least efficient dropbacks in the entire next gen stats. In their entire status of dropback efficiency, it is the worst ever recorded by Deshaun Watson. And really, my question is, where do y'all stand with Deshaun Watson? I know coming into the season, he was a popular QB2 superflex, with some upside. He looked absolutely atrocious in week 1. Hasn't looked good really in a while. I know he had the injury last year, but didn't look good before the injury. Where do you fall with Deshaun Watson, Jeff? Are you ready to give up on him yet?
The off-field stuff, we all agree. There's that. That's done. On field, what do you want him to do with the backup left tackle and Micah Parsons just, hurdling every, offensive lineman? I mean, they came in so hurt. They still don't have a true wide receiver too. I love Amari Cooper, and I think it's a good fit with Watson, but he still needs somebody. And then David Njoku, gets hurt and stuff like that. It's just the lack of depth on offense is wild considering who's calling the plays. There's no excuse. They've nailed running back. I'm never concerned about who's in the backfield for Cleveland. I'm always concerned what the heck is going to happen when that ball goes in the air. And you throw in the shoulder concerns with Watson and stuff like that too. And it's tough. They need to be healthy before I care more, because anybody that has to look at Micah Parsons for 50 plus snaps a game,
it's not going to be efficient.
Sucks, man. That sucks. That's the best. Arguably the best defender, because TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, all those guys, just I would die. So it's just one of the things. He is what he is at this point. Anybody's still waiting for the Texans days to come?
Probably not.
Too bad, guys. You're gonna be sitting on on your couch waiting a long time for that.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine who's a Cowboys fan. He's also a big DFS player, so he pays attention to a lot of stuff, and he obviously watched the Cowboys game. And what he brought up was something that I hadn't heard really talked about, and that was body language. He said Deshaun Watson looked like he was defeated. He looked like he was disinterested. He was, just not in the mindset of a quarterback being a leader of a team, and that's what he didn't like about Deshaun Watson. So that's one thing to take into account too, beyond just the bad stats and the fact that he has no one blocking for him, and he had Micah Parsons there. Just the body language too that his teammates also see. So that's a big factor as well. What about you, Brian? Where do you fall with Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, and I think the simple answer is it kind of is what it is, and it's Jover and all that. I think to be a man of my word about the whole 1 week sample. Yeah, when you lose both tackles, right? And you're facing Micah Parsons and the other guy, Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence, yeah.
What are you gonna do, right? I have to ask myself, what do I win if I win, and what do I lose if I lose, right? And if I cut bait with Deshaun Watson, drop him in a redraft or sell him for a couple thirds in Dynasty or something like that, and he beats me, first of all, okay, fine. I'll still make that bet. But also, what's he going to beat me with? What is his true ceiling now, right? Is his true ceiling now still the quarterback 3 on your Superflex roster? Well, then, okay, fine, right? The thing that's interesting to me is that the personnel decisions, even the ones that didn't work out, like Elijah Moore, have been telling us that they want to throw more. The thing is, he's not the quarterback for the Stefanski offense, right? He needs more of a timing quarterback, more like a Shanny quarterback. And so it's just all, and then the vibes obviously in the shoulder. what are you losing if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. All right. We'll get a couple more in here. All right. This one is from Fantasy Points Data on Twitter. Leaders in end zone targets per game since the start of 2023, minimum 8 games played. And really the guy that I want to talk about is right there at the top. Christian Watson leads the NFL since 2023 with end zone targets. I believe he had 2 in week 1 with 1.8. The next closest is Calvin Ridley with 1.33. Obviously, Jordan Love is going to be out for a little while, so that's going to, potentially come down a little bit. But just over in potential with Christian Watson, like I said, I think he had 2 end zone targets in week 1. Brian, I'm going to go to you first on this one. And we can look at this from a dynasty perspective as well. All the talk in the offseason was, which of these Packers receivers do you want? And obviously, Jaden Reed had the big week 1. Everyone's talking about him. But Christian Watson, when he's on the field, has been really, really good. And he's getting these many end zone targets, too. Eventually, it has to kind of catch up with him, right?
I'm going to say yes. But first of all, this tweet is a conspiracy. This is Ryan Heath at Fantasy Points, who is a fellow Watson backer like me, setting the parameters for since this year and this minimum, so that this stat looks good. He's juking the stats and he's trying to spread the Christian Watson propaganda. This is not an honest. No, I'm just kidding. When everybody was on the field, Christian Watson was in 2023 the more targeted player. We hope he figured his hammies out, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of other peripherals you can point to with Watson besides this stat that show he's a good bet and he's a young wide receiver, right? The issue still is it's kind of lazy to say there's too many mouths to feed, but really it's who is going to be that guy week to week when you've got 6 legitimate pass catchers plus Josh Jacobs and then eventually Marshawn Lloyd. I don't know who's going to be the most consistent performer and how much are you willing to take on boom bust on your team? What does the rest of your roster structure look like, et cetera, right? So I've got him still, I didn't overreact to 1 week. He's still in the late 20s or early 30s for me for dynasty wide receivers. He's going to be one of those guys where when it's a good week for him, it's going to be a great week for him. But there's going to be, 4 targets, 3 catches for 37 yards and no TD, and you're going to have to swallow that. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? Where do you fall on the Christian Watson thing here?
I don't mind him. I know that the injury to Love stinks, but people forget Christian Watson was a value draft pick. He's been dealing with injuries and he's up and he's down and he's questionable and he's doubtful and then he itches and stuff, so we never know what he is week to week. But when he's on the field and we know that he's healthy, and he openly says that because he hasn't been shy about that, we know he's good. And it's been that way ever since college, and we're kind of starting to tiptoe if he can actually stay healthy for a year or so. We're tiptoeing into the territory of, wow, Trey Lance is this great quarterback because he went to school with Christian Watson. Well, Dan Lefevre was drafted in the same draft that his wide receiver teammate Antonio Brown was. We all know what happened with Lefevre, or you may not have heard of the dude before, and we all know what happened with Brown. We're starting to get to that territory where maybe the wide receiver is just so much better that even with a low ceiling quarterback when he first came in because he was so raw, playing at an FCS level, Trey Lance had the security blanket that every quarterback needs. And it's undeniable, that every quarterback needs that at least one receiver to do that. So, and I think Jordan Love has found that. He's just good, and he's working with a top 5 coach to spread the ball out as well as he has and stuff like that. And even if Rodgers wants to be like, oh, I'm not going to teach you this or whatever when he was there, Jordan Love ain't stupid. He can see. He's going to follow what's going on and stuff. And now we're learning that Jordan Love, he's been playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. He didn't talk a lot and stuff like that. And now he has a year under his belt, and it looked pretty good until he got hurt. So,
yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, in the NFL, that's what they want. They want to spread the ball around. In fantasy, we want it all going to one guy. But in the NFL, the more guys you have getting the ball, touching the ball, the better it is for you. And it's going to be a week-to-week thing. Like I mentioned, Jaden Reed had the big week 1. Christian Watson had the 2 end zone targets. I think he caught one of them. He missed the first one, but it's going to be a week-to-week thing. And, we still haven't even talked about the Romeo Dobbs and the Dontavian Wicks, who may also have their moments in the sun as well. So
what I will say, though, about Watson is that they move him around the formation. There's always that clear plan with him. Everybody else has fit in around him. And unfortunately, I'm used to that growing up watching the Bears a lot, just get bludgeoned by the Packers and stuff. I'm used to competent coaching from the opponent. And that's exactly what happened before Love got hurt again, this year and stuff like that, is that they had the exact game plan that they needed. Watson was, running what he had to, but it was Jaden Reed that benefited, because everybody knows a healthy Christian Watson is someone we have to make sure we're not just side-eyeing. We can side-eye Reed, Dobbs, other people, and sometimes you find out what happens when you do that.
Reed's got a high. There's people who think Reed is and can't, or is about to become like a superstar just with the ball in his hands. It's just there's too much juice. So even if he's only playing in 3 wide receiver sets, et cetera, et cetera. But there is something to be said for your point about coaches figure out ways to get their most dynamic players the ball. And Christian Watson probably is the most dynamic player. One thing that I've been playing with, the last couple of years, we looked at the increase in, gap running, power running, duo running, whatever, all basically not zone, right? And now we see that in week 1, rush rates are up, and rushing TDs versus pass TDs this week, et cetera. And you have to wonder, like, is this now crystallizing into like 2024 is going to be like the return of the run game? That kind of, again, only 1 week. But if it is, right, is there a case to be made that the guys who are like Watson, who don't need as many touches to get explosion and get good fantasy points, are those guys now not the sort of like, oh, he's boom bust dismissing? Now he's the guy that's like, well, if they're going to be more balanced, give me the guy that's going to, only need a few chances to get me points. I don't know. I'm not saying that. It's just something that I've been playing with in my head the last couple of days.
Yeah, I like that, because you're right. I mean, there's some running backs are that way as well. Like, you almost don't want them to get the full workload. You want them to get those fewer targets or those fewer touches, because they just seem to be more efficient with them. So it's a good point. All right, let's do one more topic here. All right, we got John Paulson again. He's talking about the Titans running back splits. Tony Pollard handled 19 of the team's 27 backfield touches. He says it wasn't like Spears, didn't run well. He had 4 carries for 21 yards, so he was actually decent when he had the ball. But Spears led them in routes 21-15. But Tony Pollard handled the majority of the backfield there. Are we ready to say this is Tony Pollard's backfield, or are you still on the Tajay Spears? And Brian, I'm going to go to you first, because I think you're really high on Tajay Spears.
I am the resident Spears truther. And so this don't overreact fits my priors. So, the bet on guys like Spears is that when they're in a backfield with a guy like Pollard, is that over the course of a season, they're going to be the ones performing better later in the year. And just the data shows that, running backs on their rookie contracts are performing better later in the year than a lot of, the running backs who aren't, right? I liked Pollard. I wasn't a Pollard truther. I did want him to get more volume, but I didn't want him to get too much volume, injury, et cetera, whatever you want to call it, whatever happened in 2023. I thought he was going to bounce back a bit and be the Pollard he was after the bye week, closer to that than the one he was before the bye week. And so we see that in week 1, that is certainly possible, right? Like it's what do they call that? Proof of concept. After the game, for what it's worth, the coach said, oh yeah, we got to get Spears more touches, right? Now, is that going to be where next week, they scheme up a couple early touches, to kind of say, that we said we'd do that, and we want to get that guy the ball, and he's probably upset he didn't get the ball, so let's do that? Or is that actually going to be like a meaningful thing? I think either way, over the bet is still the same, that over the course of the year, give me the guy that's younger, more explosive, better peripherals as a receiver, was trusted in pass pro on third downs last year. I'm still okay with Spears. This is definitely it's been 1 week thing.
Good stuff. What about you, Jeff? Where do you fall on the Tennessee Titans split here?
I tend to agree with Brian. Like it's more of a slight lean. And it's only because did you guys watch the passing offense for the Titans? Holy cow, it
Was
is
there one?
bad. It is bad. Like I can't yell because I don't want to wake up my family. But like those interceptions, like he should be benched. And here's the thing why, like for Dynasty, I think Spears especially is the one that I would target, especially after this game, is that Brian Callahan has no personal attachment to Will Levis. You know, that's previous regime and stuff like that. They could be cheeks this year for all we know. I mean, if it's based on Sunday, you know, they're going to be fighting, you know, some pretty bad teams like the Panthers for that number one pick. So you're more likely to still see, you know, 3 yards in a cloud of dust with Pollard because you still got to give your quarterback a breather if it's going to be Levis and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys look at his backup. It's Mason Rudolph. I don't want either. That's bad. That's awful. So I think long-term, like the money that Pollard got, good for you, get paid, bro. But I think long-term it's going to be Spears, but I'm also concerned that if he couldn't convince Brian Callahan, you know, with all this time, you know, off season, you know, new coaching staff trying to, you know, get acclimated, you know, earn the trust of the players. If he couldn't, you know, wrestle a true 50-50, you know, as well as get more of the targets, you know, so like dominate pass work and then, you know, split rushing and stuff, then I don't know if it's going to happen. The good thing is they invest in the O-line. They just have invested poorly at quarterback, and that's just really important for what they have going with them with two veteran receivers in Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. So I would target Spears probably in all formats going forward. But I also know too that like expecting him to run away with this job is just not realistic.
Yeah, I'm with you, and you know he did slightly outperform Tony Pollard in the routes at least. So we expect them to be in the negative game scripts pretty much all season. So they're going to be throwing the ball a ton. So you know if Spears gets those extra opportunities that Brian mentioned that they hope to get him, maybe he breaks a couple and gets a little bit more chances. So there's a potential that he could end up being the better running back at the end of the season. So it's still verdict's still out for me on this one. So it's hard to, you know, it's week one, like Brian's been saying this whole show. It's week one. Don't overreact. So
what are we gonna name the show? It's week one.
It's week one. All right, let's get to our prop bet of the week.
Prop bet of the week.
All right, we did this a lot last year. We're each going to pick one prop bet from Underdog. I will put it into a little parlay, and we will see what happens come week 2. We'll go to you first, Brian. Give us your guy for this one.
Yeah, I'm going absolute chalk here. I think chalk. We don't have pick'ems in Jersey, so I don't know if it's chalk or whatever. But anyway, Devon Achane. The higher lower is 0.5 combined rushing plus receiving TDs. So he basically just has to get a touchdown. With Mostert out and with a team that likes to play fast and in a game where despite that Buffalo is definitely going to be run heavy this year, is likely to, you know, have the offenses push each other. I'm going to go with Achane.
Yeah, I like that call because, I mean, you know, Mostert's going to be out and, you know, he's going to be the guy, you know, at least we expect him to be. I know he's got some injury, a question mark next to his name as well, but I do think Devon Achane is an easy bet to fall into the end zone or to catch a touchdown either way. So I like it. All right, Jeff, what you got for your prop bet here?
So this one, it's not an overreaction to what he did week 1. It's based on the opponent that he has and the injuries they're dealing with. And I'm going with over 17.5 rushing attempts for Joe Mixon.
Nice. I like that one.
They're welcoming the Chicago Bears to town just in time for no Roma Dunze. I don't care what the practice report says. An MCL sprain is an MCL sprain. And it is your rookie wide receiver that you spent the 9th pick on. You're not playing him and jeopardizing the rest of the season. You're just not. And I don't know if Keenan Allen's going to play like that heel injury, like it's leaning game time decision. And he looked pretty darn good this week. And I was actually considering him for his props, but they don't really have a lot for him up. But Mixon, I just think it's interesting when Cam Akers was declared inactive. That was enough for me to realize that Joe Mixon, it's going to be like, 75-25 today. Because I think if they really wanted to, base off the preseason steam that he earned, then they would have had 3 backs active. That it would have been one or the other, in my opinion. But again, I'm also not D'Amico Ryans, who's a really good coach. I am in my basement. But I think Joe Mixon is going to be in a position to get enough carries. The Bears can be beaten on the ground. That's where you beat them. They don't have a 3 technique when the main focal point of their defense is a 3 technique. So you can beat them up the middle. And that's where Joe Mixon does his best work. He's still going to get his receptions. I don't think it's going to take away from anything, but they could run away and hide with this game. So it could be Mixon up, 2 scores in the third, getting, 3 out of 4, touches as they move down the field for the icing, touchdown and stuff. And that could be, touches 19 through 23 at that point on that drive. And we saw in a high pace game and everything as well, too, the ball was going to be his. It was coming out of the backfield. So I really like what they did with him. I think it's better than what was being schemed up last year for him in Cincinnati. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do just a nice change of scenery sometimes for a guy can be a difference too. And we saw it at least for 1 week. But I think after what the coaching staff saw, he's going to get an opportunity to push 20 carries alone.
Nice. I like it. All right. So I had mine all queued up and ready to go. I was going to go James Cook over or higher 14.5 rushing attempts. Unfortunately, it looks like they have taken it off. It's now grayed out, and I cannot do it. But 6 of his last 7 games, he's gone over that number. 8 of his last 10, he's gone over that number. I had it all spieled up and ready to go. So I had to pivot while you were talking there. And I'm going to go with I'm going to stay with the same player and go James Cook higher than 2.5 receptions. And it has a little bit of a multiplier on there as well. I think he was using the passing game last week. I don't have the numbers on him because I wasn't prepping to talk about his receptions. But I know he got checked down at least once because I know that the play that I saw that my friend sent me with Dalton Kincaid being quadruple teamed, that pass did go to James Cook. So I think he will be involved in the passing game. So I will take James Cook here. So I think we got 2 guys from the Thursday night game. So we'll know right away if this.
Man, you guys are trying real hard there to. Let me see here. I'll pull up. He got 19 rushing attempts, and he caught all 3 of his targets for 32 yards. So he's got to run a little pure. But again, we know that Miami lost a little bit from their front 7 in the offseason and didn't replace all of those pieces lost. So,
yep, good call.
And we got a hand injury. I don't care. Josh Allen practiced all week. It was his left hand. Duh. He's not throwing with it, but still has to pat the ball. You still don't want to get worse. And those easy checkdowns and stuff. I should have looked at Dalton Kincaid. That's one of those ones you want to just overreact and just go the opposite way. It's just aim for his overs and hope that his ADOT is in between 5 and 8 yards.
Yeah, good call. All right, so just to recap, we are going higher, half a touchdown for Devon Achane. We are going higher, 17.5 rushing attempts for Joe Mixon, and we are going higher, 2.5 receptions for James Cook. If you happen to log in and the 14.5 rushing attempts is opened again, I would definitely take that bet. But it looks like Underdog is probably adjusting that line a little bit because it probably got bet on a little bit too much. So we're going to put our $5 on there. If we hit all 3, we can win $26. Again, if you are not on the Underdog platform, it is super easy to join. Just go download the app and make sure to use our promo code GF2 and get up to $1,000 in bonus bucks. It's pretty easy to sign up, pretty easy to figure out and how to play. We just showed you how simple it is to put in a pick'em. There's also best ball too. If you play best ball, it's to me it's the best platform for best ball out there. I know DraftKings and FanDuel all do it as well, but I think Underdog has the best platform by far. All right, gentlemen. That wraps up the show. I want to thank you, other Jeff Hicks, for coming on. Really appreciate you popping in. Definitely want to get you back on the show again. I know you've been, like I said, in the Discord for a while, so it was great to get you on the show. If you wanted to, plug your Twitter handle one more time and anything you might be working on, go ahead and plug that as well.
Again, appreciate the opportunity, Jeff. It's been great. GoingFor2 has been around for a long time, it feels like, since the first Obama administration. Because when we're talking the early days of fantasy Twitter, I distinctly remember going for 2 and a lot of the names attached to it and stuff. So I appreciate that. At Other Jeff Hicks, I am so sporadic on Twitter. I post stuff. It's there. You can catch my Big Ten writing at College Sports Wire, a property of USA Today. You can also see me posting on Reddit because, if anything, I love engagement. But you can catch me there, and I will be charting more than likely Denver Broncos player participation for the entire season. So if you see me around or on another podcast and I look really distraught, you know why.
I love it. Good stuff. All right, Brian, what you got going on, man?
Well, I was first making sure that I follow Jeff, and apparently I do. And so, I also will give +1 to anybody with an Angel Reese pick in the banner.
That's my girl, Go Sky.
Yeah.
Go Sky.
I have a Sky Reese t-shirt. Yeah. So yeah, FF Junkie _ on the Twitters, Dynasty Fever Pod midweek. We just dropped our Don't Overreact to Week 1 episode today, and 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the same YouTube channel, live on Saturday is the Dynasty Saturday Night 5 with me and Josh Walker at Rotonaut. And I think what we're gonna do this week is I forget. I think it might be like, if we were going to overreact, this is what we'll say, and we'll give a list of 5 things that we don't. I don't know. We'll see. It's a Saturday show, so it's kind of in that pocket where you're already pivoted to the next week. So we'll see what's up. But yeah, tune in to find out.
You just underreact instead. No overreact. We're gonna underreact.
Yeah. I love it. All right. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. If you have not joined our Discord, it is 100% free. You got the little ticker down the bottom of the screen there. But if you're on audio, we got over 2,000 members in there currently. We have over 50 fantasy coaches that are there to help answer your questions, and over 300. And I just kind of estimated over 300 fantasy analysts. There might be even more than that because of the Scott Fishbowl situation, where most of them are fantasy analysts. They're in there as well. A lot of interaction in the Discord. So if you're not in there, go join. For Brian, for Jeff, I am Jeff, and we will see y'all next week. And good luck this weekend.